Australia is a popular destination for young people to spend a year or two working and travelling, partying in hostels, and exploring the country. However, for many, their experience working on farms is a story of financial exploitation, sexual harassment, and mistreatment. Australia offers something called a working holiday visa to young people who want to travel and work in Australia for 1 year. The visa encourages you to take up short-term employment, as you are legally only allowed to work for an employer for a maximum of 6 months. This rule encourages backpackers to take up seasonal work, such as farm work.
Today we are in Fremantle working at the prison hostel YHA.
Working in a hostel like this means you can meet lots of new people, especially if you're a solo traveller.
Working holidays are sold as being an exciting holiday, where backpackers have the opportunity to work with animals on farms and get to experience Australian culture. However, the reality of working is often quite starkly different. In 2015, the director of this documentary, Catherine Stoner, travelled to Australia to work and travel after finishing high school. Catherine also worked on numerous farms across the country, and it was due to her experiences that she decided to make this film.
My first experience of sexual harassment was by a farmer. I'd been working in his field picking peaches when he told me that I could work topless. He offered to leave and not come back if I desired to work in his field half naked. He came back 5 minutes later, asking why I hadn't taken him up on his offer.
One of the managers on the farm made an inappropriate comment that said about this girl's camel toe. And so he made an inappropriate comment, and then our boss said, right, all you girls need to wear shorts over your leggings because I don't want any of my male employees to get in trouble for saying something about you. And they just make comments about your tits and stuff. Like, it's weird. Yeah, they are sexist. A lot of them anyway.
And the owner was not the nicest man, which made the experience even more worse. We were all very stressed because of his short temper and his inappropriate comments. And I saw some young girls coming to the resort and with not much life experience, and I really feared for them.
Now, police officers were called to a backpackers hostel in Home Hill, just south of Townsville, around 11:15 last night after reports that someone had been stabbed. When they arrived on the scene, unfortunately, a 21-year-old British backpacker was found deceased. A 30-year-old British man, also a backpacker, was in a critical condition. Another man had also been injured, and a dog had also been fatally injured at the scene. Now, police took
He dragged her out of her bed, and on camera he stabbed her multiple times in the chest. She died of a stab wound to the heart. Mia's killer, Ayad, developed an obsession with Mia, and people said that he was saying that she was in his room and therefore she belonged to him. So she asked to move rooms and she wasn't allowed to move rooms. So he, according to what came out in the mental health courts, he thinks he took her hostage and he's no recollection of having murdered her or Tom. At that time, as soon as I heard from her, you know, you can tell if you're close to somebody when they're struggling, when there's something going wrong. She was in a state of panic and I could hear it in her voice. So I started researching myself, and what I saw was a review on, I think on TripAdvisor or Facebook, for Home Hill Hostel, which called it Hellhole Hostel. And the guy concerned said that it was just horrendous. The way it was being run was unacceptable. But that was one review. And you know, if you review most of the hostels, which take part in the 88 days, you will find bad reviews. I found out more about that hostel, but then people started to tell me that this was a wider picture and that young people on the 88 days were suffering from all kinds of exploitation and were put in danger. And I was horrified because this was a government programme, and I'd assumed she was on something like Camp America. and I'd assumed that she was going to be looked after and that she was safe. And that wasn't the case. So that was what set me off researching when I came home, trying to find out more about the 88 days and what was actually going on.
Much of the accommodation lived in by backpackers is unsanitary and overcrowded. This working hostel in South Australia is one of the worst examples we've seen.
I wouldn't advise people to come, so yeah, it's quite an experience. The owner's different, not a good person, not trusted, lied to.
Tells a lot of lies, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of lies.
He lies to get people here.
Yeah.
Like, he'll work really hard for the first week to get them a job, so you hear, oh, you've got a job for the first week, but then the second week you're doing 2 hours and earning no money. But then he still expects his rent and everything else. So we had a little mouse pop out the sofa.
So do you have any running water here?
No. Not that you can drink.
Not that you
You
can
drink
drink.
rainwater, which sounds bad, but you haven't been ill or anything, so.
No.
But they did say don't drink the tap water because it's out the lake, so you don't want to drink that.
So how do you shower? Is that in Lake Water as well?
That's like what, yeah.
Yeah. This pool, he said, oh, well, I only fill that up if there's 30 people here. You can't fit 30 people here. You can probably fit about 20. So he's never going to fill the pool, is he? Like, it's just a character, isn't it? That's one way of putting it.
Yeah.
And those facilities and amenities, most Australians wouldn't accept. They'd say that's not acceptable. And most Australians would expect to be paid the award rate, not some under-award rate.
A lot of backpackers experience, if they have bad experiences, their tendency is just to pack up and leave. And aside from being really bad for Australia's reputation, it means that the officials and the regulators don't hear about it because they've left the country.
Well, obviously there's been a number of deaths in the horticultural sector over the last 4 years, and that's disproportionate to the amount of people who are employed in that sector. Some people could say that's unfortunate, but we don't think it's unfortunate. We think it's unnecessary and could have been avoidable.
They need regulation of the system, and there is none. There is no data. There's no data about numbers of deaths. All we have is anecdotal from the press, and I hear anecdotally myself of deaths that never reach the press.
I am aware that, on some of the farms that there are people getting hurt. Like most farmers are fairly careful, and to drive a forklift on a property now you have to have a licence. A forklift with big steel forks sticking out the front, if you forget where you are and just drive straight out where you can't see, say from between some citrus trees or something, it's very easy. Those forks will go straight through the side of a vehicle, and that's happened on the odd occasion.
And there's no data about injuries, and we all know that the numbers of injuries are huge among backpackers, and not surprisingly, because they're climbing ladders, they're being asked to step onto the top rung of a ladder, they're falling out of trees, they're using machinery they're not trained to use. Who knows what's going on? Because we don't know, and we're not being told. Occasionally stories reach the press, but what percentage of these stories actually get reported? We don't know.
But I had my machine going the fastest it could go. There's a limit on the machine itself. I was going like the fastest I could go. And obviously there's a safety aspect, which we were all saying to him. We were saying, you can't make us go this quick. It's a big machine, like going around this farm. And I was like, there's a safety aspect to it. Like we can't be flying around all the corners and things.
We asked what organisations are in place to ensure farmers are working safely.
Oh no, like there's WorkSafe and there's WorkSafe inspectors, and usually if there's a problem, like an employee might report it, there might be just random checks, there might be somebody that's noticed something.
The issue is, there are not any of these random checks. During Catherine's year travelling and working in Australia, she never once saw or even heard anyone talk of seeing a workplace inspector. WorkSafe inspectors visit over 40,000 workplaces each year. They inspect businesses of all sizes across all industries. This means that any day now your workplace could be visited. With only 40,000 visits each year and 590,815 businesses in Victoria, only a small portion of farms may be visited.
Most farmers try to do the right thing, clearly, and most growers try to do the right thing by their employees, but obviously there's a small group of unscrupulous farmers and growers who exploit workers generally and backpackers more specifically, and we're not very happy about that at all.
A lot of people have contacted me since Mia died to say they recruit, they take passports, they retain passports illegally, but the place was also awash with drugs of all descriptions. And this was hardened, seasoned backpackers saying that they'd never seen anything like it, and these drugs were all available in the hostel.
You know, the law is a strange beast because you can look at a situation and everybody can know that it's wrong, but which law, who enforces it, and do they enforce it, and the time taken by the system is what really makes it difficult. So with somebody having backpackers, one, you've got to prove that they've got too many people there, but because people have rights, you have to let them know you're coming to inspect, so they just move everybody out, and when you get there, it's all, you know, the right amount of people and the right amount of beds and the right amount of rooms, etc., and everything's clean and tidy, and you go away and you know that they're probably all 4 doors up and ready to move back in again once the inspection's over.
The government needs to properly regulate the sector and the working holiday scheme to reduce the number of deaths in that scheme and in that industry.
And this lack of safety can result in some terrible outcomes. Martin Hand was working alongside Oliver Max Karaman, who died whilst working on a farm.
The farmer come up to us and he said, we said, we're only picking 7 trailers today. And the farmer basically said, I don't give a fuck. You're picking 8 trailers today. You know, so he was trying to force us to pick the 8 trailers. I'm not saying it did, but, you know, maybe that what he said to him was maybe like the straw that broke the camel's back. You know, whether Max was feeling really drained at this point, and, you know, he was just trying to keep on, you know, to get the money, because he previously mentioned that he was struggling a little bit with money and stuff like that. So, I don't know why he carried on, or, you know, whether we should have spotted something earlier or not, I'm not sure. So the 7th trailer was about to leave and we were going to complete the 8th trailer without Max. And I come back from around the side of the trailer, and as the 7th trailer was about to leave and go back to the farm, and I remember seeing like Max out the corner of my eye, like sort of run past me and look at me, and I could tell at this point that, just by the way he looked at me, that there was something seriously wrong. Like his complexion was completely different to what it was 10 minutes ago when we'd finished the trailer. His eyes were cross-eyed. He was running like a newborn deer, where the legs are wobbling and their arms are wobbling all over the place, and so he was running really strange. And I essentially turned around to the guy and was like, what the fuck's he doing? What's going on? Because I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know really. I sort of thought, you know, this is serious. And I was like, I didn't know what to say to the guys. I was like, shit, what's going on? What the fuck's going on? What's he doing? I was like, his body was doing whatever it could at all costs to try and get out of the heat or out of the sun or whatever, I'm not sure. But once they seen how serious he was, because we got him back to the shed at this point when the ambulance crew arrived, once they seen how serious it was, you know, that's when they started getting, like, making the hospital aware and stuff like that, because it was that serious. They actually asked Mick, the farmer, to drive the ambulance back to the hospital so both of them could attend to Max in the back of the ambulance at the time. But yeah, it was like 19 minutes of essentially trying to keep him alive, keep his heart going, keep him breathing, trying to keep him cool, keep him as comfortable as possible on the... What we did is we threw a load of like cut up cardboard on the floor so he wasn't lying on the concrete as well, just try and make it a little more comfortable, yeah. But it was probably the worst day of my life from what I seen that day.
One of the main issues is that farmers go through contractors in order to hire backpackers. These contractors own working hostels, which are businesses run just like hostels. The contractors offer to find farm work jobs for residents. The costs of these hostels are often very expensive, and residents can be expected to pay for travel, accommodation, and have a slice of their wages taken by the hostel owner before it even reaches them in return for having found them a farm work job. After all of these expenses are taken out, backpackers are often left with little to no money. There are two ways backpackers get paid for their farm work. One is with hourly wages, where no matter how much fruit the worker picks, for example, they will be paid a set wage. A worker will be paid an amount dependent on how many bins they have filled. When fruit picking, a worker will pick fruit and put it in the bin. However, to encourage workers to work faster and harder, farmers will often pay you depending on how many bins you can fill. The legal wage for a casual worker as of 2018 is $23.66 per hour. However, farm workers are often paid much less. According to the National Temporary Migrant Work Survey of 2017, almost 1 in 7 participants, 15%, earned $5 per hour or less, and almost a third, 21%, earned $10 per hour or less.
Honestly, I have so much respect for full-time pickers because they are like, I have no idea how they do it. It's so hard. You have this bag over you like a kangaroo pouch, and you have to get all the oranges, and I only figured out after you told me that it's better to use 2 hands. And then you have to like waddle over this big bag to like a bin, and then you undo it, and then all the oranges go in, and yeah, it's hard. And then sometimes there are wasps, but it's fine. But it's just when it gets really hot, you can't pick. So when it gets too hot, we don't work, because otherwise it would just be, I don't know, you'd probably pass out or something.
The job was hard, but it was okay. You stand under the trees in the shadow. That's all right. But the money was way worse. Like it was piece rate, and they promise you a lot of things. So when I first arrived in the hostel, the lady was, you're gonna make so much money here. You're gonna get, I don't know what you said, 160 for a bin in an hour and a half or something like that. So obviously that wasn't true. I worked there for 4 days, and I made, on average, I think $14 an hour, which isn't too bad. But it's $6 below the minimum wage here, and the things at the farm are really, really slow. So you have to wait an hour and a half before you can start working. After work, you have to wait an hour for the bus to take you back. You can only work 5-6 hours a day, mostly because of the weather.
Also, if it rains, we cannot pick in the rain. We have to stop. We stop immediately, like when we say stop. Empty your bags in the bin, cover it over, and hide under the trees. Okay, don't go anywhere.
So it's really difficult to save some money.
It's quite expensive.
Random, I think.
Live at the hostel and not work.
Yeah.
So I think that's what people struggle with, is having the money.
Yeah.
To stay here.
Yeah.
So.
Also, the hostels are quite, I don't know, I feel like they're kind of dodgy in the sense that they charge too much. And
they can charge whatever they want.
They charge whatever they want, and you have to go to them because you don't know the specific farms that exist.
Yeah.
However, on this farm, backpackers are allowed to live and work on the farm, thereby avoiding expensive hostel fees.
So this is a 3-bedroom house, and we have a large bedroom which can take 3 people, and the other 2 rooms are smaller, and one's got a double bed in it and one's got 2 singles. So we have 7 people in here, and we have 2 people in the bus that share this, the kitchen and everything in here. There's 7 in the house and two in the bus, so there's 9 people here. We don't have any more than 3 people in a bedroom, and we don't have bunks. We've got another house, and caravan parks with camp kitchens and that for people who want to camp.
However, many farmers may argue that backpackers are not great workers and have complained that they are lazy and would prefer to party.
If that's the case, then they need to look to another workforce, and they need to restructure their business models so that they can actually pay Australian workers and make it worth Australian workers' time to actually work on their premises. And if they can't do that, then they're not businessmen. They don't even bother training backpackers. How do they expect them to know a job when they hardly ever give them any sort of induction, any training, any advice about health and safety issues? You know, they don't see that as part of their role because the turnover of staff is so fast, you know, so extreme.
This has led to backpackers being stigmatised and pushed out of farming communities, with posters such as this being displayed in Queensland. However, Australia needs backpackers. Farmers are reliant on migrants to help out with seasonal work. But without making any changes and with an increasingly bad reputation, farmers are going to struggle to get backpackers for work. We asked, what are some of the ways you can look after yourself when completing your 88 days?
I think my main bit of advice would be look at the seasons before you come over, because like we've come like right at the end of mango season, but if we'd started at the beginning of avocado season, like that would have been perfect because we would have been at a really good farm. But some people arrive like mid-season or like right at the end of the season, and then they start doing a couple days at one farm, and then the season ends, and then they've got no work for a month while they're like switching over seasons. So that's something that I definitely advise to people.
My advice for backpackers would be, if you can avoid piece rate, avoid it. If you can avoid crazy expensive hostels who charge $210 a week, avoid that. Try to get an hourly paid job. It's definitely possible. There are good contractors out there, there are good farmers. Maybe try to do your 88 days at the beginning of your trip and not at the end, so you have a little bit of time to find something new and to find something different.
If you spend 6 to 9 months chasing your 88 days, then you've got 6 to 3 months left of your first year. You've then got a second year. Why not just have a year, go away to New Zealand and come back for 4 months? You've got the same amount of time in Australia, and you can earn good, decent money in New Zealand anyway, and they do treat their migrants. You don't earn as much, probably, but the cost of living is much lower. Your accommodation is pretty much free most of the time, and they treat their migrant workers with respect over there, as far as I can tell. There's none of this going on over there because there's no coercion, there's no pressure to do it. They have to attract workers through decent pay.
More sneaky advice is probably just lie that you have experience. Or if someone's like, depending on what you want to do, because there's like picking, pruning, packing or something, if you really want to go in the packing shed because it's less hard, I would say it's better work if you don't want to be in the sun, and just say you've done something like that before at a different farm. When you show up somewhere, they'll probably put you in that direction. That's good.